Hi guys, Claudia Boleyn here. I wasn't planning to make a video today, hence the no makeup situation. Anyway, something I kind of read really freaked me out, and I think I do worry sometimes because I don't know how much, if you've watched me before or what I talk about and stuff, but I do feel like I've been pretty gaslighted for a lot of my life. So I've always kind of felt like maybe I'm overreacting to stuff, and obviously I talk a lot about how I think our country is becoming more fascist. Worrying stuff coming out, like the Tories yesterday, someone stood up in the House of Commons and actually said that we should scrap the Human Rights Act. So obviously you probably know that one of the stages of fascism is a disdain for human rights. And that it's got to a point where that isn't like a fringe opinion, that's something that's going on in the Houses of Parliament. So that was quite disturbing. But the thing I really wanted to talk about, which has really worried me, is the new the police bill. So I made a video about this before and I was really worried about it then. But Priti Patel has added 18 additional pages and we are heading for something that really is quite scary to me. Also, I just want to say some of you guys watching, don't worry about me when I talk about politics stuff. Like, honestly, it actually takes my mind off a lot of stuff that's going on at home. And I also feel like it's good for me, like in therapy and stuff as well, because there's some things in life that you can't change, but sometimes if you can bring awareness to something and if you face something and, you know, if you're spreading awareness, then it can help you, regain some of your power as well, I think. So I actually, I downloaded the amended police bill last night and I went through it. And I also, there's an article which I probably will read to you from, like, I'm not going to monetize this because, you know, you should read the article. It's a Guardian article by someone called George Monbiot or Monbiot. I don't know the pronunciation, sorry George. This was the first I actually saw about it. So, jailed for 51 weeks for protesting. Britain is becoming a police state by stealth. The government's backdoor amendment to the policing bill are tyrannical. We should be on the streets in our millions. Okay, so this was not a clickbait title. It's not dramatic. I've read the police bill, the changes to the police bill, and I'm going to try and organise that and put it on the screen. You know, I've got ADHD, so it's a bit difficult, but I'll try and put them on the screen. I went through it last night and it's really, really worrying. So I'm going to try and actually show you the parts of the bill that are worrying and why, because I do believe now that we're at a state where we might be heading for a place, it sounds kind of weird to say it and kind of scary, but where we might not actually be able to speak about the stuff so much in the future if this thing goes through. So it's important that we talk about it now, because if we don't, it'll just be too late. There's no good looking back and saying, oh, why didn't we do something then? Because, I mean, the time is now. The time is right now. Okay, so I'm going to have to put my glasses on for this because the screenshots are quite little, and I don't think you've seen me with my glasses before. I have two pairs, and these are my red pairs, so yeah. Okay, so I'm going to try and go through this stuff, but I'm not a politics student, so I'm not the best at deciphering this, but... Okay, so first of all, there's a new clause that's being added. So for the offence of locking on. Okay, a person commits an offence if they intentionally attach themselves to another person, to an object, or to land, attach a person to another person, to an object, or to land, or attach an object to another object, or to land. Or B, a person commits an offence if the act causes or is capable of causing serious disruption to two or more individuals or an organisation in a place other than in a dwelling. Okay, so I know that loads of people said that we were really dramatic and being oh, woke snowflakes, lefties and stuff, but this is exactly the kind of thing that we're talking about here, because when we said peaceful protest is going to become illegal, I think people just laughed because they were like, don't be stupid, of course not, you must be misinterpreting it. That is peaceful protest. So if we look at, for example, the suffragettes, so the suffragettes protested peacefully in some ways, but something they did is they would attach themselves to railings, for example, or to buildings. That's a non-violent form of protest, so it's not hurting anybody. It's just a sign that you are angry. It's taking a stand. It's making people pay attention and listen. So I'm finding it hard to even comprehend, as I'm saying this, that locking on is an offence. Peaceful protest is a criminal offence. It is not protected by law. And there's an explanation statement underneath all the legal stuff. They put a little section where it's explained just more generally. So this amendment creates a new offence of locking on involving the attachment of an individual to another individual, to an object or to land, or an object to another object or to land. The requirement of the offence that the act causes or is capable of causing serious disruption to two or more individuals or an organisation, and that the accused intends that to occur or is reckless as to whether it will occur. And this is where things get really, really worrying, because, for example, in any place that isn't a dwelling, in any place that isn't a house. Now for example, what might that mean? The way that's worded, what might that mean for the Gypsy Roma travel community? Say that they have their things taken away, right? Say that their home is taken away. Say they won't leave their land, or they're told that their home is no longer their dwelling. Now, under this clause, it says that two people have to either be disrupted, or there's the potential. Now listen, this is the bit that worries me, that the act causes or is capable of causing serious disruption to two or more individuals. So it doesn't even, it's bad enough as it is, because how do you define disruption anyway? We're already having a situation with the Gypsy Roma traveller community, for example, where they can be cited as an annoyance, like a disturbance, and they can be moved on. But in this instance, it doesn't even have to be actively causing disruption to two people. It just has to be argued that it potentially could cause disruption to two or more people. Okay, they added another clause, which is for the willful obstruction of the highway. And I think they've added this because of the protesters that glued themselves to the road recently. And I made a video about how disturbed I was by the way people reacted to that situation, because I know it's annoying if there's people in the road, but also if we look back in history, in order to gain any of our rights, there's had to be protest. So I know it's inconvenient sometimes, but if things weren't inconvenient, then I mean that's the point of protest, isn't it? Because it's the sense that the people in power aren't listening, and you have to make them listen. So a lot of people are against violent protests, so they don't want to do that violently. So they think, okay, we'll have to cause some sort of disruption so that we are listened to. And that's how so many rights have been won. So the people that are so angry about that are probably enjoying rights won in the very same way. But listen, for the offence of obstructing a highway, you can be imprisoned for 51 weeks. So 51 weeks is the maximum. So it's not necessarily going to always be 51 weeks, but legally they are within their power to jail somebody for 51 weeks for getting in the way of a road. Now think further than the I don't know if it was Extinction Rebellion. It escapes me. Sorry, I've got ADHD. But obviously it was climate change protesters and that thing. But put that in another situation. So say that there are weapons being taken, being transported down a road, weapons that are going to be used. For example, say we're giving weapons to a regime like Israel, and they're going to use it on the Palestinians. And protesters go in the road and they say, no, you're not passing through here with the weapons, you can't. Those people can go to prison for 51 weeks. And this is the worrying thing again, because even some people might be hearing this and think, well, okay, if you are disrupting a highway, there should be some consequence. I don't agree with that, but if that's what you believe, fair enough. But listen, this is the explanatory statement. It clarifies that for the purposes of the offence, it does not matter whether free passage along the highway in question has already been temporarily restricted or prohibited. So they don't even actually have to be causing the disturbance in the road. It just has to be a case of the road could be closed. Okay, so then there's the offence of being equipped for locking on. The locking on is when you obviously so you attach yourself to railings, or you hold on to another person even, or you hold on to a building, or you hold on to the road or something. But you can now be got for the offence of being equipped for locking on. So this is if you have an object with you in a place other than a dwelling, with the intention that will be used in the course of or in connection with the commission by any person of an offence under section offence of locking on. Okay, so the phrasing of that, an object with them that has to do with locking on or protest. They don't clarify the object. They don't clarify that it has to be something dangerous or a weapon or something disruptive, right? It could be a placard. It could be it could be a sign. It could be anything relating to the protest. Then gets you on the offence of being equipped for locking on. Okay, then this one. So we already in this country know that we have stop and search laws which discriminate against black and brown men especially, but they've taken it further. So they now have powers to stop and search on suspicion. Okay, so let me just read you this. The amendment amends Section 1 of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act of 1984 to allow a constable to stop and search a person or vehicle if they have reasonable grounds for suspecting that they will find an article made, adapted, or intended for use in the course of, or in connection with an offence listed in the amendment. Okay, so that basically means they can stop and search you if they think that you have something on you that might relate to the protest or the locking on. But this is the scariest part, okay? So there's another clause they've added, and these are the powers to stop and search without suspicion. Okay, so listen to this. This section applies if a police officer of or above the rank of inspector reasonably believes that any of the following offences may be committed in any locality within the officer's police area. An offence under Section 137 of the Highways Act, willful obstruction, involving activity which causes or is capable of causing serious disruption to two or more individuals or to an organisation. They won't have to prove that. Think about that in practice. So it doesn't even have to be something that does or is causing disruption. It just has to be capable of causing disruption, and all the police officer's got to do is imagine or suspect that potentially, such a thing that they've imagined might reasonably cause distress for 2 or more people. I mean, any of us can do that. I mean, if that's the law, it makes no sense. Like, I could stop anybody on the street because I, in my head, have a suspicion that, well, I guess they could have, like, something in their car which might annoy 2 people. I mean, I guess I have the powers to stop them. Like, that's all the proof you need. They don't need to have suspicion. So the first clause was bad enough, which was that they can do it with suspicion because their suspicion is powerful enough. And remember, there'll be a lot of racial bias, and there'll be bias against certain groups because they're the ones that are most likely to be protesting. But to actually do it without suspicion, to put that into law, to protect police officers that do that. Okay, and this is even worse, okay? So this is really scary. So the next one, offence relating to section powers to stop and search without suspicion. 1. A person commits an offence if the person intentionally obstructs a constable in the exercise of the constable's powers under section powers to stop and search without suspicion. So it's now going to be an offence. So if you're an innocent person and you know full well that police officer, say you are a black or a brown man, and you know that a police officer has stopped you purely because you're a man of colour, there's no way you're acting suspiciously. There's nothing. You're just an innocent random person. It's just an offence now. If you obstruct a constable in the exercise of their powers. So I assume that would mean even saying to them, why have you stopped me? Like, what's the reason? Like, that's reasonable to say, isn't it? It's reasonable, surely, to say, well, what makes you think that? Why have you stopped me? And a person guilty of an offence under subsection 1 is liable on summary conviction to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 51 weeks. 51 weeks. So I know they're saying not exceeding. That's the upper end. 51 weeks. That's my maths is appalling, but that's pretty much a year, right? That's pretty much a year. We are talking about, and remember, this is a system where we don't have the money for our prison system anyway. But for some reason, they've decided that we're going to be putting people who are not dangerous in the slightest. They're not a danger to the public. They're not somebody that people have to be protected from. It's just a punishment. It's literally just a punishment. It's just, you protested, you stepped out of line, there you go, a whole year of your life. In prison, off you go. The state should not have that power. They should not be able to weaponise that against people. Not for offences which include holding on to something. I mean, imagine, you hold on to a railing and you get almost a year in prison. Can you imagine that? I mean, that's what we're heading for. Oh gosh, and there's another one here. Gosh, okay, and then we've got provisions of serious disruption prevention order. So basically, they can stop a person, they can impose this on a person. If they get this disruption prevention order, they are not allowed to be at a particular place, or not allowed to be at a particular place between particular times on particular days. Or being there at a particular times on a day, or being with particular persons, or participating in particular activities, or having particular articles with them. Or using the internet to facilitate or encourage persons to commit a protest-related offence or a protest-related breach of an injunction, or carry out activities related to a protest that result in or are likely to result in serious disruption to 2 or more individuals or to an organisation in England and Wales. Okay, so I'm actually I just got this wave of feeling a bit upset reading that, because think about what that actually means. So first of all, if you are guilty of 2 of the previous protest offences, so it could be something as small as you have disrupted a road, or you've held onto a railing, or you've caused disruption in a way that didn't actually technically cause disruption, but was seen as somebody reasonably thinking that you could have caused disruption. So that happens twice. They can stop you from going to future protests, so they're going to keep you away from other protesters. They can ban you from taking part in a further protest. So it's actually a crime to use the internet to facilitate or encourage persons to commit a protest-related offence. Now, the way we would think in our reasonable minds, we might be thinking, well, I could kind of see that making sense if someone was inciting a form of maybe sort of violence or harm. But because of the way this is written, that's not what it applies to. This applies to any protest-related event. So encouraging somebody to block a highway, say that there are weapons being sent, and they're being sent by us, and they're going to, I don't know, Saudi Arabia, right? So we're giving weapons, and peace campaigners are saying, no, we can't do that. The weapons are going to be used to kill innocent people, and they stand in the road. If that happens twice, or if even those people who can't go themselves online promote the activity and say, oh look, we're demonstrating here. So basically this is stopping information. It's making it an offence to even spread information about protest. And people who protest, so we have people who are activists who will be at different protests. It won't take long for them to get the 2 strikes against their name for things that really are not a danger, are not violent, that are just very, very basic principles. Like under these new clauses, pretty much every justice movement, even the peaceful justice movements, would be considered offences and illegal. So no more Martin Luther King, no more suffragettes. Like, all of these people, I really don't know how to express that this is terrifying, genuinely terrifying. And once this stuff is in place, there's not going to be any time, because you won't be able to protest. Not only will you not be able to protest, you won't be able to advertise the protest. You won't be able to be seen as having any potential possibility of being near the protest. You're not allowed to associate with specific persons, so maybe you're not allowed to get to associate with your group. And who does that make vulnerable? So say there's a lot of transphobia in this country, so say that trans people are protesting, right, and they have a community because they need to support each other, and there are allies from the LGBT community also with them. It then separates them for those people. Anything that they encourage which could even potentially disrupt 2 or more people is an offence. Now think about how this works for oppressed and minority groups who are already treated badly. For the Gypsy Roma traveller community, for example, they are considered to be disruptive for just existing. Sometimes a Gypsy Roma traveller family will be somewhere and people will act all up in arms, like, oh, they shouldn't be here, they're disrupting, they're causing annoyance, they're a nuisance. Already. So just existing as a minority puts them in danger, right? And then the locking on stuff as well. So say they try and take their stuff away from them. They say, oh, well, technically this isn't a dwelling, it's not yours anymore, we've taken it, it's ours, it's not your home, it's our home. You've got to go. And if they say, right, well, we've got nowhere to go, we're not leaving. Right, okay, then that's an offence, that's locking on, off you go. Doesn't even have to get to that point. If they assume that they might, if they think, oh, maybe they're going to lock on, oh, they've got something with them there, they've got a sign. I mean, it doesn't even mean that they have to lock on. Remember, it doesn't even have to mean that. It just has to mean, under these new rules, it just means they have to suspect that you are doing that, or you might do it, or that if you do it, it might disrupt people. And of course, like, what's the scale for that? There's nothing in place. Like, what counts as disruption? Because right now, it seems that they can say that annoying... I mean, I said before about how annoyance is going to be a reason for police to shut down a protest, causing annoyance. But you can't clarify annoyance. Of course, people are going to be annoyed. If you're protesting, people are going to be annoyed. So it's like, for example, this doesn't just affect the left wing. This affects all of us, every single one of us. It's not just like a woke snowflake problem. The anti-vaxxers, the people who are anti-mask wearers, I don't get it personally, but they do have a right. They do have a right to protest. The moment this stuff passes, that's not going to happen. That's not going to be able to exist anymore. There will be no ability to fight back. So all the right-wing people who, they talk about cancel culture and all that stuff, like all free speech. This is the time to start speaking about free speech. Because it might seem alright right now because you think, oh, it's just going to get the snowflakes. You might think, oh, I don't really care about global warming or refugees or trans people or the Gypsy Roma traveller community, so it doesn't affect me. But by the time this goes into law, if there is anything that you want to protest about, you're in trouble. You are in deep, deep, deep trouble. And this is how it starts. I cannot believe what I've read. This is real. This is an actual real thing. And the opposition aren't talking about it. So Keir Starmer made a tweet this morning about, can't trust Boris Johnson because last Christmas when we were following COVID rules, he was having a party. And okay, yeah, that is a good point to make because he shouldn't be doing that. But there's a reason. There is a reason that right now there is this media thing about, was there a Christmas party? Wasn't there a Christmas party? It probably isn't really that damaging to Boris Johnson because he's done worse and people just kind of forget. Stuff's so bad right now. It's like a clever technique where so much stuff is constantly coming out that people just start to, like, forget things. Things get replaced. This is the big, big, big issue of our time. This is the thing we need the opposition to be talking about, and they're not saying anything. Okay, so I'm going to put a link to the article by George Monbiot or Monbiot. I'm sorry, George, I don't know how to pronounce it. But let me just read you some sections of this article. I would say, go and read the article yourself, but this is proper police state stuff. The last-minute amendments crowbarred by the government into the Police Crime Sentencing in Courts Bill are a blatant attempt to stifle protest, of the kind you might expect in Russia or Egypt. Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, shoved 18 extra pages into the bill after it had passed through the Commons and after the second reading in the House of Lords. It looks like a deliberate ploy to avoid effective parliamentary scrutiny. Yet in most of the media there's a resounding silence. Among the new amendments are measures that would ban protesters from attaching themselves to another person, to an object, or to land. Not only would they make locking on, a crucial tool of protest the world over, illegal, but they are so loosely drafted that they could apply to anyone holding on to anything on pain of up to 51 weeks imprisonment. There's so much more in this article, I won't read all of it. But also, perhaps most outrageously, the amendments contain new powers to ban named people from protesting. The grounds are extraordinary in a nation that claims to be democratic. We can be banned if we have previously committed protest-related offences. Thanks to the draconian measures in the rest of the bill, many of which predate these amendments, it will now be difficult to attend a protest without committing an offence. Or we can be banned if we have attended or contributed to a protest that was likely to result in serious disruption. Serious disruption, as the bill stands, could mean almost anything, including being noisy. If you post something on social media that encourages people to turn up, you could find yourself on the list. Anyone subject to one of these orders, like a paroled prisoner, might be required to present themselves to the authorities at particular times on particular days. You can also be banned from associating with particular people or using the internet to facilitate or encourage a protest-related offence. Okay, so this stuff is really scary, and like I said, I wasn't planning to make a video today, but I just wanted to, I know not even many people watch my political videos, but if anyone sees it, then hopefully you're aware now, maybe if you weren't before. I don't really know what we're meant to do. There is a petition. I'll put the link to the petition in the description box. I don't know how long we'll be able to do that for, because if that counts, I wonder if that counts as supporting, protest-related activity. I just wonder how this is going to be applied, because if it's even, online encouragement, the wording is so vague. They can use it to take out anybody who protests, any of their political opponents, anything. And I am actually at this point begging the opposition. I cannot stand Keir Starmer. I can't stand the man. But please, for the love of God, say something about these laws, because otherwise we are in deep, deep trouble. I don't know how to express how serious this is. I feel like we are in the beginning of a nightmare, and a lot of people don't seem to have realised yet. And I'm pretty sure that by this time next year they'll be like, oh, how awful, we should do something about this, but by that time it will be too late. 51 weeks in prison for a protest-related offence. Is this a democracy? Is this a free country? That is not a power the state should have. That is not somebody committing violence or harm to somebody. That is a very, very basic right to protest injustice. And even to the people who think that it doesn't apply to them today because they're fine now, you don't know who's going to get into power in the future. Anyone could get into power, no matter where you are politically. The people in charge do not have that right. Even if a really left-wing government got into power, and you're a right-winger, and you would absolutely hate that. I would love to have a left-wing socialist government, but I would absolutely not like for that socialist Labour government, even if it was one I supported, to be able to put people who protested in prison for 51 weeks for disagreeing. That's the real cancel culture here. This is the culture war. This is it. This is the war on free speech, on protest. It will come for these people at some point. So obviously it will go for the minorities first. Just wait until there's something that you think too draconian, too far even for you, even if you're a centrist. Because everything's shifting to the right anyway, because Keir Starmer's jumping. What on earth are we going to do? We could see, pretty much most of our prominent activists could be jailed by this. And if they can't talk about it online, then how will people even know that there's an injustice? How will we create change? How will we stop anything? Yeah, so it's all pretty scary. It's all pretty horrifying. I don't think I'm being overdramatic. I just generally, I'm so angry that this has even got to this point, and I'm so angry that the opposition isn't even doing anything about this. Because what on earth how do they think that they are gonna... Do people want to be living in a dictatorship? honestly speaking, I think the majority of us, no matter where we are on the political spectrum, do not want to be living in a political dictatorship where you can't protest because protesting against something gets you put in prison. I'm pretty sure most of us can agree on that. Like, even if we have polar opposite opinions, I think that probably unites the majority of people in this country, I would imagine. These people are dangerous. These politicians are dangerous, dangerous people. Genuinely dangerous at this point. Like, you can't even make excuses and say, oh, well, they're just politicians, they're just doing their job. This is a willful way to actually just crush democracy and freedoms for people. It's basically them saying, right, we've got enough power now that we can do whatever we want, and nobody's going to stop us. Who's going to stop us? Because we've taken out the left, we've taken out the opposition, or Keir Starmer's done that for us. And if any of the central lefties that are still there to annoy us, they're not even on our radar. Because once we start doing bigger stuff, the activists are gone, and that lot start finally, like, coming forward and saying, oh, I don't know if you should be doing this. We're like, oh, okay, you think so? Oh, that's twice you've said that now. If you go to prison for a whole year, and we'll pass whatever law we want in the meantime. Like, I don't think people seem to understand that this will actually affect... This can affect anyone the government wants it to. This could affect, like, even the people who love Keir Starmer and they're centrists. This could affect Keir Starmer. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's the whole point of this. Maybe that's why they haven't like had a go at him, or they haven't tried to bring him down, because they needed someone like him to be in power while they passed this. They knew they wouldn't get this past Jeremy Corbyn. They knew there was no way. But they thought, you know what? If we can just pass this just while someone like Keir Starmer's there, if we can do that, then we're laughing. Because there's nothing they can do. Because if Keir Starmer himself goes to any sort of demonstration or some sort of protest and he's not supposed to be there, he's the same as everyone else. Put him in prison. It sounds insane, but they'll have the power to do that. Like, they will have the power to do that. And I honestly am starting to wonder now. I've been trying to figure out the Keir Starmer thing for ages. Like, is he working with the Tories? Why are the Tories not going for him? Like, what's happening? It's almost felt like they were working together. I'm now wondering if maybe they're not. Maybe they just knew that he is quite weak. He cares about his image, his persona, his ego, power, power over policy. As long as he gets into power, as long as he becomes Prime Minister, it doesn't matter what it takes to get there. Maybe they've thought, right, good, if we can keep him busy, because he's not going to care about this moral stuff, he's not going to want to look unpopular. If we can spin this just right and keep him quiet and his lot because they're worried about being elected, he won't even realise that by the time we've passed this, Labour's never getting in again. No one's ever getting in again. The Tories are just going to be there forever in power. And it's going to get more and more right-wing all the time. And this should even worry people that, like, probably would consider me their enemy, and I'd probably consider myself their enemy, if that makes sense even to have enemies. But, like, people who are, like, really far-right people, you know? People who think that we're not right-wing enough. You know, people that hate refugees and think, oh, don't bring them in here, all that stuff, you know? Even people that are so awful that they're like, you know, just leave them to drown, they shouldn't be here. Like, that's evil. I think that's wicked and evil to think that. But even those people is a wicked thing to think or say. But even those people in this country should at least have the right to stand somewhere and have a sign. You know, that's the cost of freedom. Every single one of us is going to soon be just doing whatever the hell Priti Patel decides. They're setting the bounds of protest. They might make tiny little disagreements acts of protest. I can't name an example of protest that under that bill wouldn't be criminalised. What's the only safe thing you're allowed to do? Stay within your own dwelling and do it? In your own house? But not in a way that disrupts anyone, so don't call out to anyone on the street, even from your house, and don't talk about it online because you might incite other people to do that. So essentially they're saying stay in your houses and feel free to speak freely, but do it privately in your house. Don't tell us. Don't be seen doing it. It's really monstrous. It's really, really monstrous. And you know this is a big deal of an issue for me because I actually put my glasses on in the video. And I've got hair that air dried from the shower. Like, I clearly wasn't intending to make this today. But I just could not make a record of this because I can't actually believe what I'm reading. And I feel more and more and more insane and crazy because nobody seems to care. Nobody seems to care. We're at a point where the media has become so like complicit with the Tories. They're all covering the Boris Johnson Christmas party. And yeah, sure, that's really bad. That's terribly hypocritical. Like, there's no way the people in power should be following one rule that the rest of us don't. But right now, there's a slightly bigger issue than something you've been sitting on for like 12 months, isn't there? Why are they bringing that up now? I'm serious. Why? Why have they been holding on to that? What's the game here? What's the game plan? Why hold that for 12 months and do that now? At this time, when this bill is going to try and go through? Very, very suspicious. Like I've said before, I think the Tories are smart. I wouldn't be surprised if they... I mean, for all we know, they've said, right, put the story out. Go on. Makes us look more fair, because it doesn't look like we're leaking anything if it looks bad about us. They probably won't even be able to get him for anything. They probably won't even be able to find he's done anything wrong. There'll be no evidence. And then maybe they'll be able to say after that, well, you know, it wasn't us. We weren't trying to hide this bill. You know, you guys were talking about that party and, you know, good. You should be able to talk about it. You guys, you were wrong about it, but, you know, we support you saying that. This whole situation is absolutely mad. So, yeah, sorry about the length of this video. I'm going to try and, like, cut different bits into it, but read that article. It explains it better than I could. I literally don't know what this journalist is like on other stuff. I'm not, like, endorsing. I'm not endorsing. Like, I just don't know. But the article is a great one, and there's a lot of really good tweets on his profile about it that are more simplified for people like me who just honestly struggle, because I've my ADHD anyway, and I've got like more of an English lit brain, more like a creative writing brain, so that legal speak bamboozles me, so I have to go through it all. But yeah, alright, I love you loads, and I'll see you really soon, and I'm going to do another vlog soon, which is actually about like my actual like life and stuff, like I did before, like mental health stuff. So if you just heard my stomach rumbling. But yeah, like, yeah, stuff at home is it's not good. Stuff is not good right now. And yeah, so just navigating a lot of stuff right now is a bit difficult. But yeah, I love you loads, and I will see you really, really soon. Okay, love you. Bye.